Hey, Mijo and Mija, welcome back to Mijo Podcast. I genuinely think social media has ruined our 20s, and that's the episode for today. I want to talk about how we live in such a culture and society where we're so overly connected with each other, but at the same time, we're disconnected. And I think this is something that has been lingering around my head for a little bit, especially if you haven't noticed, as I'm trying to become more consistent with the content that I post on social media, on Mijo Podcast, but also on my own personal social media and trying to balance that back and forth. And lately, I've been doing a lot of research. I've been looking at a lot of people's pages and content and really just trying to study how people interact with social media from a consumer standpoint, but then also how creators interact with the individuals that are consuming their media. So I really kind of picked up on a trend, and it's something that I came across. I started feeling this way, and amongst talking with colleagues and friends and relatives, I think it's a collective of how everyone's feeling right now, and it sparked an idea in my head to make this episode. So I really hope you enjoy it. But I really feel like social media has ruined our 20s. And I was talking to a coworker who was a little bit older than me, and she was talking about how back in the day, when she was in her 20s, she was living in downtown LA. She was going to college, and she was really enjoying her life and going out and partying and clubbing. And there wasn't this pressure for social media. There wasn't this pressure for being caught up on social media, right? Because we're we're living in such a digital world where phones are everywhere. And a lot of the times, you're afraid of the cameras while you're having a good night out or a good time. But she was also talking about this pressure, like people would just really just vibe out, right? Like there wasn't this status quo of you have to wear this or you have to, make a video out of every restaurant that you're going to or out of your entire night and fitting in the aesthetic. And she just mentioned it being very much more free and more open and more relaxed, right? Like you were genuinely going out to have a good time. And I think a lot of this also comes from her having a preteen, right? She's about to have a teenager at home. So she's starting to see how social media is influencing her child's life and the disparities between how she was raised and how I was raised. And of course, when I have conversations with her, she also kind of matches and mirrors that to her experience in her 20s, right? And I think everyone is really just focused on performing instead of living life right now. And I think it's so common. And I can kind of be at fault for it a little bit, but we're so busy trying to set up our life on what's going to look best on social media, what's going to make the best reel, where am I going to get the most content, what is going to look better on social media instead of doing things that we genuinely feel we want to do for our lives, instead of having fun, instead of creating memories and moments with our friends. Like we're in this cycle of content, content, content. And I think right now, a lot of us are trying to become influencers and a lot of us are trying to make a little corner and space for ourselves on this huge digital platform. And I understand. I'm trying to do the same, and I really understand where we're all coming from. But I feel like a lot of this comes from the way that our generation was raised with technology and with social media. That we're starting to become a generation that's constantly consuming, constantly trying to create, comparing ourselves. We're constantly scrolling, and we're just trying to find the next best, biggest thing, and that really has a pressure that comes with it. I think we are falling into these pressures where we all feel like we have to look successful, we have to look attractive, we have to look happy, we have to look productive. There's a lot of looks. Like you have to look the part in order to be that influencer that everyone wants to follow. And it comes with looking the part. I don't know if it doesn't help that I live in Los Angeles. So there's a lot of that's surrounded that we're surrounded with. So I think that also intensifies it. I know a lot of times people see living in LA as a privilege and as something that you should be taking advantage of, but when you really live in LA, especially me growing up in Southeast LA, Los Angeles is just like the backyard of where I grew up. And, I know Los Angeles through a different lens. I know Los Angeles through Los Callejones, and I know Los Angeles through, like the neighborhoods and the restaurants and the communities and the events. And I don't really know it from an entertainment or influencer lens. And I think that's what I'm starting to learn about LA. Like, I'm starting to be introduced to this new side of LA, right? I went to a small intimate concert not that long ago that was at the Roxy in Hollywood. And these are venues that have been here for so long. And, you're on Sunset Boulevard and you see how normal this LA culture is. And it was even a culture shock for me to be able to see, like, wow, like, this is crazy. Like, I've lived in LA and this is my first time at the Roxy Theater. And on top of that, I think it just goes to show how that adds to being performative, right? Like, I made a reel out of that. I made a TikTok out of that, which, by the way, Julio Cesar commented and liked my reel. So shout out to him. But it really just, I was like, okay, I'm going to make a reel out of this. And I was able to grab, a good week's worth of content from that concert. But it really just changed my mindset, because I was like, I'm starting to fall into this rabbit hole of like seeing LA from an entertainment perspective. And I don't like it, because I like the LA that I grew up knowing. I like the LA that I know, full of culture and full of, vibes and energy and community. And seeing it from that entertainment lens, it's crazy. It's crazy to see the reality that other people live and what the world knows LA as. But it's just a culture shock for sure. And I think social media has come to really turn regular everyday people into brands, and I think that's something that's making a mark. I think we're all starting to build our brand, and I know, and by all means, I don't want to exclude myself from any of this. It's reality. I'm building this Mijo podcast brand, and I'm being very very delicate with what I'm trying to pour into it, but at the same time, I'm trying to build a personal brand for myself on social media. And I think that's one of the things that's becoming the problem, is that personal people, individuals, are not meant to be brands, right? We're not meant to be brands. Like, the everyday person's not meant to be a brand. And I think that's what's impacting the way that we carry our relationships outside of social media and outside of the spotlight. A lot of us are starting to say, oh, that's not my vibe, or I can't post this. That's not really what I post. That's not my content. That's not what my audience wants to see. And it's scary, because you could be missing out on things that you're really passionate about, right? Like, I know people who have this like luxury elevated brand, and they refuse to post like street tacos. And then there's me, who loves street tacos and who loves, just the first gen lifestyle. And that's what I post. Like, I post the real, raw, and honest version of me. So our 20s are starting to feel less about discovery and more about performance. It's more about, this is what I should be doing because this is what other folks are doing in their 20s, instead of really discovering who we are meant to be. That's something that my coworkers and my, close friends tell me all the time. Like, your 20s are the moment where you're discovering yourself. You're discovering who you are as an individual and a separate identity from your family and from your parents, from, having grown up in that space. Especially when you move out and when you start your career, you're really starting to get to know who you are. Like, what are the activities that you like to do? How do you like to fill in your spare time? And now we're focusing less on trial and error and focusing more on building this perfect life that we haven't even started yet. And I think that's the biggest thing that I realized was we don't even know what our life is and what our likes are and what our dislikes are, and we're already trying to perfect something that we're supposed to be trial and erroring, right? And people are having this pressure to have the most aesthetic apartment and the nicest car and the best career and the aesthetic routine and the aesthetic relationship and the aesthetic meals and the perfect meal prep, and here's my weight loss journey. And we're so focused on perfect and aesthetic that we really are leaving less and less room for error and for trial and error. And I really think that's true, because let's be honest, most of us are doing our content outside of work, right? So at least for me, the content that I'm creating, it's on my spare free time. So it's on my weekends, my Saturdays off, my Sundays off, right? I'm going out to cafes and I'm trying them and I'm, recording a reel, or I'm going to concerts and I'm recording a reel out of that, or I'm creating the podcast on my days off, right? So it's like I'm starting to now use my free time to curate these brands that I'm passionate about and that I'm trying to be transparent about. But at the same time, it's like I'm giving myself less and less time to explore, to discover, and to try new things that I could potentially be in. So that's one of the things that I'm trying to do now is, okay, I'm going to equally allocate time for me to go try something new and to just be free and experiment mostly like what it is that I'm going to like. Because I think back and I think and I say like, I wish I would have done this when I was 18, and I wish I would have done this when I was 19, and now at 23 I'm only 3 years away from being 20, right? And there's things that I'm like, "Oh, I can't do that anymore," right? So prime example is college. Like I never went to a college party and I never got involved on campus. And I can't do that now as a grown adult. I can't just go to a college party, or I can't just go to a college campus and try to become involved. So there's scenarios like that where I'm like, one day in the future, I'm going to say, wow, like I can't do that anymore because now I'm grown, or now I have kids, or now I have a family, or now I have a serious career, and I should have done that in that exploratory phase. So that's one of the things that I really see becoming more common. We're starting to create these soft lives instead of like the real authentic life, and we're picking and choosing what we're going to do with our time. And in reality, I feel like it's very rare for someone to post about real, like honest life, and like anxiety and burnout and confusion of the stage that you're in life, and the failures. Like not many or any people post that. Everyone's like hyper focused again on that aesthetic life, that trend that's going to get you more likes and that's going to get you, to where you want to be with your end goal. So I think social media is making us collectively feel like we're missing out on something. It's making us feel as if we're late to something. And I think that's common because a lot of us are seeing this curated version of someone's life, whether those are people that we grew up with, went to school with, or complete strangers that we met through social media. We're starting to feel like we're missing out on something. And we're starting to compare our point in life to someone else's. And a lot of the times it's people who are the same age as us, or people who are older than us. And what we forget is, if someone's the same age as us and they're far ahead in life, they're not showing what got them there, right? They're not showing, their parents who might have hooked them up with that first job, or, someone that has a trust fund and doesn't have to work and has all this extra spare time to volunteer and to do internships. And we're seeing these curated lives, we're seeing the final product essentially, and we're not really seeing what it takes to get there. And that's the flaw, that we're comparing ourselves to someone's curated version of what they want us to see. So I think that's very common, and I think that's something that we need to somewhat pause ourselves from doing, because everyone's sharing the highlights of their life. We're seeing people getting engaged, people are having kids, people are buying houses and going on extravagant trips and going to Coachella, and like everyone's doing all these amazing things, but we don't see the back end of that. And we start to have FOMO and say like, "Oh my God, like everyone's having a kid right now, like I need to have a kid," or everyone's going to Coachella, I need to go to Coachella, and everyone went to Hawaii, like I need, my next vacation has to be Hawaii. And we're just so like itching and desperate to meet what everyone's doing that we're not giving our time, to do that. Like a lot of these people are older and have the funds to just get up and go on a vacation and catch a flight. Or some people are at this stage in their life where they have to, make a big jump in their career, or they're at the stage in life where they've, worked their ass off for years and finally have enough money to buy the house that they're buying. But unfortunately, since we're so used to seeing these small snippets of people's life, we start to like feel like we're missing out because you're like, well, I can go to that coffee shop and make the same video, or I can go to that museum and make the same video. But then once you reach a milestone like that, you're like, holy shit, like, how do I buy a house right now? I can't buy a house right now. So I think those are the flaws that I'm starting to see in social media. And there's a lot of people that, are out there giving advice and making reels on how to start your like TikTok or Instagram reels, phase. And I just, it becomes a lot and it becomes very overwhelming. I think a lot of us are trying to just survive, especially nowadays with everything going on in the nation and in the world. And we're starting to really just like become very overwhelmed. And it's hard to live in a reality of, this social media craze when you're trying to survive throughout the week. And a lot of us don't have the advantages that others have. And, we don't have the free time to go out and make like all these restaurant videos because we work during the week and then we're tired when we're not working. So sometimes it feels like we're behind even though our life hasn't even started. And I think we need to stop doom scrolling because I am guilty of doing that. A lot of the times before I head to bed, I carve a little 10, 15 minutes out of my night to scroll on TikTok and, scroll on Instagram and just see what's going on, like what the new trends are, and just try to really like analyze, like, all right, like what is everyone doing? Like, how can we do something similar to that? So I think that's the bad thing that comes from growing up in such a technological, no, technology feel technological. I don't know. I want to say technological. I don't know why that doesn't sound right, but in such a tech first world is that we're really just hyper focused on always checking our phone. We wake up, check our phone. Sometimes we feel like we got a notification and we look at our phone and then there is no notification, which happens to me more often than you think. But we're getting exhausted. We're consuming bad news 24/7, and I feel like now it's so easy to just spread so much so fast and so like easily that it's affecting us, right? Back in the day, if there was news, it had to be newsworthy for it to be printed in the newspaper or put on the news segment. And, you would only find out about it when the paper was printed or when the news, came on the TV. But now it's like we have the ability to just click send and we're posting every small little thing about everything, right? It's like, this happened and then this happened and then these three things are the next follow up, and we're following the story, and every 5 minutes you're getting updates about things, and you log onto your phone and you kind of just have this fatigue of like, holy shit, there's so much happening in this world, and the gas prices are up and we're getting play by play, and I think that's really exhausting and really draining for us right now. And we're not giving ourselves the mental break that we need. And our brains are just like in such fatigue. And I don't know, I just feel like this is how everyone's feeling. And I think recent national events have made people express this on social media. And as I was scrolling, like those were the things that I was seeing, the consensus that I was getting from people of, just the constant like flashbang of opinions and notifications and stories and like everything that's coming our way. I think we're just overstimulated right now. And yeah. But another note that I made on here was like what happened to real connections. And I mentioned this early on in the episode, like we're more connected than ever, but still somewhat disconnected. And what I mean by that is, we have everything at the tip of our fingertips, and we're connected so much that we can easily text someone, call someone, send someone a reel, like FaceTime. But at the same time, it's like, how often are we seeing that person in real life? Are we going to lunch? Are we having genuine conversations of actually catching up and being like, hey, like, how are you? Like, how's life? Like, I heard you got a new job, a new promotion. Like, we're missing out on that and we're just sending each other reels all day. And that's our form of communicating with folks now, right? And we quickly sneak in a little like, oh, I miss you. Like, I love you. We should go hang out sometime soon. And then, kind of just gets lost and falls through the cracks. And then we just jump straight back into here's another meme. Here's a cat. Here's a funny video. But yeah, I feel like friendships are starting to feel transactional. We text all day, but we hardly ever really talk. And a lot of the times when you hang out with most friends, it's really all about content. It's all about like, well, wait, let me record this first. Or like, no, 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 let's walk back outside. I need to do that shot again. Like it didn't come out as I wanted to. And we're just like glued to our phone instead of actually enjoying the time that we're spending with someone else. And something that I'm trying to be better at because as I mentioned earlier, I am trying to create content, but I also want to respect the time that people have around me. So yeah, I think we need to stop worrying so much about an aesthetic, especially if we're hanging out with people. And I think another big part of this, oh my goodness, I'm getting stuck here. I think another part of this is like what social media has done to dating. And I think I've openly talked about this before, and there's an episode there's several episodes on my podcast about dating, and in those several episodes, I talk about, online dating and how that has really ruined human connection. And I still stand by that. I really feel like we have changed the way that we see relationships. I think we are now falling into these cycles and cultures of like situationships and ghosting, right? You feel like you don't have to respond to people because you have all these options, and you feel like you don't want to commit because again, you have all these options. So we're starting to see situationships become more of a trend and ghosting become more of a trend. How many times have you matched with someone on an app and they like don't reply? And if you send them a message, they just don't reply. And you're like, great, well, like, why are you on here and why are you swiping? Swipe or no swiping. But yeah, I really feel like a lot of the times with social media and with all the people that are starting to talk about dating on social media, we're starting to normalize, like people that are unavailable and people that are wrong. Like I see people online trying to defend why they think, monogamy is not modern dating and why they think, being emotionally available for someone at the beginning is not like the norm and shouldn't be the norm. And we're starting to excuse these outrageous ideas. For what reason? I really don't know. But I really think that people's access to people has increased, of course, with the digital world that we live in. And everyone's just focused on looking for the next best thing, the better option. Like, if this is great, I can find something greater. And I feel like we're starting to see more of that and less of actual, like, vulnerable conversations and intimately trying to get to know someone, just from what a relationship should be. And you see all these videos of people going out to bars or going out to parties and saying like, "Oh my God, help me find so and so," and I'm like, "Girl, you were in the same room at a bar." Like, it blows my mind. But then again, that's content. So it's really just this revolving circle of like we're hyper focused on content, and TikTok is just it's changed us, dude. It really has. But I don't know. I feel like sometimes people are starting to learn how to consume people instead of how to connect with them. And I think that's the biggest problem. And we're all just exhausted right now. Like, I will be transparent with you. I'm so exhausted right now. Like, there's so much going on that I'm just like, I want to sit at home and just rot in bed. Like, work is busy and, life is busy and there's so much going on, like in politics and in the nation that affects us day to day. And it's just overwhelming. And I think a lot of us are just like, oh my God, like, let us breathe, please. But yeah, I think everyone feels emotionally exhausted because we're just busy. We're burnt out. We're burnt out and we're falling into this cycle of productivity is the key, right? That's what we have to do. So I really feel like there's this pressure for us to 24/7 be doing something and for us to always be bettering ourselves and working on our fitness and eating better and going to the gym more often and picking up a new hobby. Now we're running and now we're joining run clubs and now we're doing Pilates and now we're going to drive 30 minutes to go try this next best like superfood. And we're just every inch of like free time that we have, every minute of free time that we have, we're just focused on filling it in. What am I going to do then? What am I going to do? And we're not being lazy enough. Like we're not. And that's crazy to say, but it's true. And if you're first gen, you already know what this feels like. I feel that first gen individuals experience this on a day-to-day basis. We're raised this way. Our parents raised us to always overachieve and we're always doing something. When we were young, we got off of school, and some of us would go work, some of us would go home and immediately help out the family, whether that was taking care of siblings or helping siblings do homework or doing the chores around the house. Like first gen kids are used to always being busy and always being up to something. So I know that my first gen community out there is really feeling the struggle right now because it feels like we're in this endless cycle of always having to do something and always having to be productive. And it reminds you a little bit of childhood, of your parents telling you, like, why aren't you doing anything? Like, there's things to do. If you're bored, go, vete a barrer. Like, si estás aburrido, te voy a dar algo que hacer. So I think it's a lot of us feel that guilt. And, the first gen folks know what guilt I'm talking about, the guilt of like always being busy and not resting. And I think it's a lot. And at some point you realize that we're connected like literally but not emotionally. And I think that's also a disconnect that's not fulfilling us and filling up our cups. And we're always online, we're always connected, but we're rarely present in person and in real life. We're consuming more than we're experiencing. Some of us are doing these amazing activities and things, but we're not there because we're worried on the best shot and what's going to make the best content. So I think we're starting to crave, at least I'll speak for myself. These are things that I wrote down, like genuine friendships, real conversations, community, quiet and peace. I think those are the things that I'm really trying to focus on as I try to navigate like social media. I really want to focus on those 5 things moving forward because, friendships are important. Like these are the people that are going to become your village as you grow up. And you want to pick those people like very carefully. And of course, you can have like friends here and there and acquaintances, but really finding those core people that you can like relax with, it's important. And yeah, I think as we close this off, some notes that I want to just make is like social media is not it's not ruining everything. I think we mutually have responsibility in that, but I do feel like it has amplified a lot of these issues, and being perceived and being sought out is not the same thing as being loved. So that's something difficult that, like, that you have to sit with, that it's like, yes, you want people to perceive you in a certain way, and you want people to follow you, and you want people to be influenced by you, but it's different than being loved, right? So being conscious of that is important, and I think we need to stop just comparing ourselves, and we need to try and focus on making our personal lives beautiful, and focus on the successful things that we have, whether that be health, whether that be family, whether that be a great career. Like, focus on those beautiful things of your life, pour into them, instead of trying to focus on other people's beautiful things, right? Because you can be looking at someone's social media and saying, oh my God, they have the perfect life. Like, they're so lucky. I wish I was them. But they could be sitting here wanting the things that you have, right? Wanting friends that are genuine and not just like meeting up for an exchange of content, or wanting family, or wanting, like a village behind them, and a career. And it gets exhausting to also be like these influencers that are constantly like watched and micromanaged by their audience. So enjoy the beautiful moments of your life and value them, cherish them, and just find that inner peace. I think a lot of the times we're overstimulated and we forget about what peace can bring to our lives. And yeah, just I don't think our generation's broken. I hope I didn't like scare anyone, or really just, like, be a Debbie Downer, but those were just some topics and thoughts that came to my head as I, again, was exploring this social media from a lens of, studying it, I guess you can say research lens. But I think I'm focusing on rest, connection, and slower moments. I think that's going to help me, hopefully, come out of this funk of like doing everything perfect for the gram or for the TikTok. And I don't think the answer is completely disappearing from social media. So don't be scared for that. I think it's balancing the fine line between being human and having a social media presence. So I'm gonna try to prioritize being human, and then whatever that gives to the social media life, that's what you'll see. But I think social media is really about connection, and I think we should again. I think we should just focus on connecting with people. But I hope you guys understand a little bit of what I shared today. I hope you feel and see yourself connected or represented in the the mindset that I have when it comes to this topic. But yeah, hopefully you guys found this as great as I did, and just always, as always, follow us on social media, as we always try to post and uplift community. So we hope that you can join our community. But that's all from me. Until next time, have a good one. Bye, mijo and mija.